For this morning, we are looking at these words of prepared for every good work. And that this is coming from 2 Timothy chapter 2, beginning in verse 20. And we have these words. This is Paul writing to Timothy, but in a great house. He's making an analogy or an illustration here. But in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. He's talking about what one may find in a house, but also in pretty much, well, actually just in any house, but in the great houses, you can find these vessels of gold and silver. And of course, we are talking about God and what He accepts as vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor. And that's what we want to talk about just for a moment. So here we are. Here are your vessel. Here is gold and silver. These are museum pieces, by the way. They don't belong to me. I did not take these. This isn't mine. These are actually, in museums. But also, we want to talk about a vessel of honor. This would classify as a vessel of honor. It has a place in the house where it is protected. There's usually sentimental value attached to it, aside from the fact of its basic worth, the porcelain or whatever it's made out of, and the design on these things usually have an expense to it, but this is regarded as a vessel of honor. And just for the sake of speaking about it, I have these in my house. Not this one in particular. I have these in my house that are so much vessels of honor, I've never drank out of them. That would be giving it to the rabble. No, it vessels of honor, and they are kept in special places. And usually there is a memory attached to it of this was given to me for our wedding, or some other occasion. This has a special place. Now we go to vessels of dishonor. This is a vessel of dishonor. You have them. You don't have, I'm just guessing here, you don't have sentimental value attached to these things. You don't. You fill them up with garbage and they get thrown out every week, and you don't think about them anymore. There's no emotional attachment to it, no sentimentality. There's none of those things attached at all. They have one use, and that is you fill them up with things you want to throw away, and then you throw it all away, and the garbage man comes and he takes it. This is a vessel of dishonor. Now here is the difference between us and these inanimate objects. We can be that. We can be spiritual refuse. We can be spiritual garbage, and it is no coincidence that Jesus describes hell. That's an English word. The word hell is an English word. That is not the word found in the original Greek in the New Testament. The word that Jesus used is Gehenna. Gehenna, why we don't take that, just anglicize that word, I have no idea. I think that's what we should have done. But the word Gehenna, what was Gehenna? Gehenna was an actual place. It was outside Jerusalem. It was the garbage dump. It was basically a valley where everybody threw their garbage. And in that garbage dump, there was, after so many years, it begins to get very, very thick. But in that garbage dump, there would be fires that could be way underneath the surface. And there's a constant smoldering. They may leap up. The flames may leap up every now and then. But it's always burning there. And when God speaks of vessels of dishonor, He will throw away vessels of dishonor, and I'm talking about human souls, into Gehenna or hell. And it is a place of spiritual refuse. Now, unlike these inanimate objects, we can, in fact, change. They can't change. We can change. And that's precisely what Paul writes. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter. That would be that vessel of dishonor. Cleanse yourself from that. He will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Now, let's look at some of the words here. What I have in the red rectangle here, this is what God does. We can cleanse ourselves. We can do that. Matter of fact, it tells us that we are to be doing that. But He makes us into a vessel of honor when we're willing to do the first. He sanctifies us. We cannot sanctify ourselves. We're going to look at this word at a later date. But here we are to be useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Now here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there, a lot, who claim to have done all of this, but they haven't done any of it. They claim that they would claim themselves to be a vessel of honor, but God may have a different opinion on this. They may claim to have been sanctified or set apart by God, but God may not have anything to do with them whatsoever. They're wrong about all of this. They have a lack of knowledge, or just wanting to disregard knowledge, disregard the truth, think of themselves as saved when they're not saved. All right, it's not my opinion of myself that's going to save me. It's Christ's judgment on me. That's going to determine salvation or not salvation. That's going to determine where I go for eternity. Now, prepared for every good work, that is someone who is able to do it. Yes, and many of us are able and willing to do it. Yeah, I knew a fella, he was a missionary, and he did a lot of work. And there were special talents, special abilities that he had. And he would say, I could name about 20 or more people who could do a better job than I do. They won't do it. They could do a better job, but they're just not willing to do it. Able? Yes. Very able. But willing? No, they're not. Now, let's continue on in this. Looking back at verse 21. Here we have that this must be done first. Therefore, if anyone cleanses, that word cleanse in the Greek, cleanses in the Greek means to clean out or to purify. And that verb, this is a verb, is an aorist active subjunctive. Now, for those that were in the Greek class, you have an idea of where this is headed. But the subjunctive is conditional. It means if. That's why we have the word if over here. It's actually all found in the verb in the Greek. All right, if anyone cleanses, that is an if-then statement. If you do this, then this will happen. Which means if you don't do the first, the second's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. There must be a cleaning that transpires. It must be done. It must be done by yourself. This is active, meaning you do it. You are the one to do it. But here we have, if this has been completed, then the next part would be true as well. He will be a vessel for honor, sanctified. And it's God that determines that. It's God that does that. And then we come to the last part of this, and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Now, someone who doesn't want to do every good work, guess what? You can't be a use to the master. You can't be useful at all. Therefore, you cannot be any vessel for honor at all. This is sheer volunteerism. This is completely volunteering for these things. But we have the Greek word from the text of prepared. It is to ready yourself, to equip yourself for a purpose, a willingness and desire to do every good work well. In this case, it's every good work. And this takes effort. and yet take some training as well. And we offer training on the job of getting in there and doing the work. That is what we are supposed to be doing. Now we hop over to Psalm 110 and verse 3. This is prophecy. This starts off with, Jehovah said to my Lord, or the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Then this is Jehovah talking to the Christ, which Jesus says that's the subject of Psalm 110. The subject of Psalm 110 is not just the Son of David, but the Son of God. And this is what is said concerning Christ and His people. Your people shall be volunteers in the day of your power. Your is Christ. That's who He's talking about. Your people are Christians, shall be volunteers in His kingdom. It does not say your people will stand on the sidelines. Your people will be onlookers. Your people will be dawdlers doing nothing. Your people will be malingerers pretending that they can't do something. Your people shall be idle and lazy and volunteering for nothing. It doesn't say that. This is a prophecy concerning His church, His kingdom. Your people shall be volunteers. That's what they will be. If they're not doing that, guess what? It doesn't make this prophecy of no effect. It just means you're not one of His people. If you're not doing that, if that's not being done, someone is to be blamed, but it's not Christ and it's not the prophecy. It's the one who's just being that will not help, will not volunteer, will do nothing whatsoever. Now, last week on Sunday night, we were talking about the church at Sardis. That's one of the 7 churches of Asia. And this is the first congregation Jesus addresses there in the book of Revelation that He had nothing good to say about them. Everybody else, He had something good to say first, and then if there was a problem, He would address the problem. And some of them have serious problems. But this is the first congregation that He had nothing good to say whatsoever. He starts off saying, you have a name that you are alive, but you are dead. Now, as we explained last week, the name Sardis is the city name. Sardis doesn't mean living or alive or anything like that. That's not what it means. It means they have a reputation. They are thought to be alive, but you are dead. That is quite a judgment coming from the one they think they're serving. He would tell them they're not serving. And as we pointed out last week, in Sardis, Jesus never mentions once concerning false doctrine that was being taught at Sardis. Not once did He mention some false prophet or prophet for hire like Balaam, or that of the Nicolaitans, which was some sort of religious splinter group with, I don't know much about their doctrine other than Jesus hated their doctrine and Jesus hated their deeds, because He says He does. You have a name that you are alive, but you are dead. So what can we say? They're not dead because of false doctrine. They're dead because they're simply not doing what they're called to do. They are not being useful for His work. They're not being useful. They are just dead. That's it. And the only positive thing Jesus said concerning them is that there were some things that were still alive but were ready to die. Keep those alive and come back. Keep that going and come back. Now, in Matthew chapter 16, verse 24, then Jesus said to His disciples, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Now, these words are to be taken seriously. That the becoming a Christian is not something to be done thoughtlessly or just on a lark or just as a side thing, like a hobby. It's none of this. This is complete devotion. Deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Taking up that cross is accepting whatever persecutions arise. Accepting it. That I'm going to follow Christ regardless of what the world says, regardless of what family may say, or friends may say, or work may say, or the powers that be may say. It doesn't matter. Deny myself, take up my cross, and follow Him. That means actively doing it, not in a theoretical sort of way, not in a figurative sort of way. It is truly denying yourself, and to take up your cross, that is figurative, but there's a lesson there. A lesson is that what was the cross for? The cross was persecuting Christ. The cross was to kill Him. That's what it was. You talk about being faithful unto death. Christ did. We are too. We are as well. This is not something that is just done as a hobby or done just because it's always been done. We're not to do that whatsoever. Jesus teaches these things in different ways. You have the parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25, beginning in verse 14. The parable of the talents, you have the 5 talented man, or the man that was given the 5 talents, man given 2, man given 1. Man that had 1 hid his talent, he did not use it, and just returns it when the master finally comes back. Thing that I know is that most of the people I have ever met have 5 talents or more. Most of the people I've met, that God has endowed us with all kinds of abilities, resources, things that we could be doing and have the ability to do, but once again, just won't do it. The parable of the talents, you have the 1 talent man, he hides it, gives it back to the master, and the master calls him wicked and lazy. He casts him into outer darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, what's he going to do with if we have 5 talents or more and we hid those? Is he going to be less harsh? Oh, we have clear teaching in the New Testament that because we have more information, because we have more given to us, more is expected out of us. Just look at Luke chapter 12 for that one. Now, in Matthew chapter 24, beginning in verse 45, and Luke 12, beginning in verse 35, we have a description that is the faithful servant and the evil servant. And he describes both in that. And then we have him teaching by way of example. In John 13 and verse 17, Jesus washes the apostles' feet. Now, if our Creator, Savior, Lord, and future Judge can do that, why can't I? I better. And that means menial tasks. That means things that seem below me, but I need to do them anyway. And I have said before, I have known men that they would gladly do great things, public things, happy that they do it. But when it came to this, they're not going to lift a finger for it. They're not going to, because it would seem, I'm not going to judge them, but it would seem all they wanted was the limelight. That's what it appears to. If you're not willing to do that, Jesus was. Why aren't we? Well, we should be. Now, let's discuss, by way of example, Saul of Tarsus. Saul, we see the beginning of Saul in this. He's being introduced to us. Acts 8, beginning in verse 1, now Saul was consenting to that's Stephen's death. At that time a great persecution arose against the church, which was at Jerusalem, and they were all scattered throughout the region of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Saul is part of that persecution. He does become one of those who is greatly feared. And he is one of the reasons, not the sole reason, he is one of the reasons why they are scattered throughout the region. They leave Jerusalem because of the persecution that is rising up. And we see this. And devout men carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentation over him. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church, entering every house and dragging off men and women, committing them to prison. Don't you think you'd leave the town? If you have men doing this, it's time to leave Jerusalem. It's time to go. And Saul is in the center of this. He's not the only one, but he's part of a very vicious machine doing it. He is one that you would just write him off. He is an enemy of God, and that is that. He is someone who the sooner he goes away, the better off we will be. And he says this about himself in Acts 26, beginning in verse 9. Indeed, I myself thought I must do many things contrary to the name of Jesus of Nazareth. This I also did in Jerusalem, and many of the saints I shut up in prison, having received authority from the chief priests, and when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. Happy that they were dying. They needed to die in his mind. And here he's recounting his past life. And I punished them often in every synagogue, and compelled them to blaspheme, and being exceedingly enraged against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities. And I want you to notice this is plural. Quite often we can think that heading to Damascus in Acts chapter 8 was the only foreign place he went to. Evidently it's not. He had gone to other foreign cities prior to Acts chapter 9, rather. Prior to Acts chapter 9, he had gone to other places. And notice, every synagogue, he is going there and he's looking for those who are of the way and compel them to blaspheme. What would that be? Compel them? Obviously, it's with imprisonment or death, unless you denounce Jesus of Nazareth. You denounce all faith in him. That's wicked. Killing them is wicked. Doing that is, in my book, even more wicked. Putting them to the absolute test of you either say this, renounce Christ, or bad things are going to happen. Now, we look at Paul the Apostle. Same man. And of course, we were just reading in Acts chapter 26, he is very much a changed man. But here are some things he writes about his life here in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23. And he's describing some of the things that he has gone through. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more. In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequently, in deaths often. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I've spent in the deep. In journeys often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. It's everywhere. It's everywhere he turns. There are perils, there are challenges, there's persecution. Wherever he goes, he's going to find it. Now notice what he's going to say. In weariness and toil, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often in cold and nakedness, besides the other things what comes upon me daily, my deep concern for all the churches. Now this would show a dedication. This would show that he he had prepared himself for every good work. And preparing himself for every good work does mean growing, training, learning, doing. But also preparing for every good work means taking on the challenges that may occur because of doing the good work. Challenges that occur as a response, evil responses against good works, and they occur daily. Notice how many perils he went through. And he can say this in 2 Timothy 4, 7 and 8, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. This is what he wants from us. And we come back to Jesus' words, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Does it look like Paul did that? Yeah, Paul had a brilliant career, if we want to talk about it. What he was doing as far as having his place in society, having his place in Jerusalem, having his place among the most prestigious in Jerusalem, he had it. He had the place that he could have gone up that ladder of prestige and privilege. He could have done that, but he's going to deny himself. And though I don't have the slides here for you, he does describe all the things that he could claim from a fleshly viewpoint, from a materialistic viewpoint, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Pharisee, son of a Pharisee, trained under Gamaliel. Gamaliel, who was one of the greatest teachers of the day, highly respected. He saw those things as rubbish, nothing. They can give him nothing. He was willing to deny himself to where he would be willing to do the various things he went through, of the beatings, of the shipwrecks, of all the perils that he found in his life waiting for him. And of all the people who knew, what the other side, the side of wickedness would do, Paul knew it. Because that's where he came from. He knew what they were willing to do, what they were capable of doing. He knew what they were likely to do. Because he had been there. And he had been doing it. Now, we just come back to this. Vessel of honor stays in the house. The vessel of dishonor, thrown away, never remembered again. The righteous, the vessels of honor, will stay with God for eternity in His house. That's the greatest house of all. In His house. Whereas the spiritual refuse, the wicked, those who denied Christ, those who think they had Christ but refuse the truth about it, refuse the truth, think that they serve Him. And all we have to do is go to Matthew chapter 7, beginning in verse 21, and you can see Jesus' response to those who claim to have done great works for Him. And He says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven." And then they begin to recite the things that they have done. He says it takes more than saying, "Lord, Lord." It takes doing the will of my Father in heaven. That's what it takes. The information has been given to us. The teaching has been given to us. Do we accept it or not? That's the question. Satan puts out all kinds of dust, all kinds of confusion. Satan puts out all kinds of things to have us running in various directions. He doesn't care which way we run, as long as we are not on the path that Christ has set, the straight and the narrow. He doesn't matter. Choose your means of destruction as far as He's concerned. That doesn't matter. But he will go into hell as what I call prisoner one. He's cast away as a prisoner. Don't think that Satan somehow is a warden to the prison or a king in a kingdom. He's not. Hell is not a kingdom. Hell is a prison. And it's been created for Satan and his angels. It was never meant for us, but we can cast ourselves into it and go right there where Satan is going to be punished. It's our choice. We get to choose. Do you choose God's way or any other way? God's way will take you to heaven. Any other way, that broad path, that comfortable path where most people are, is leading to destruction. Here we have being prepared for every good work. Being fully prepared. Prepared to do it and be prepared for what may occur from wickedness because we've done it. Having the fortitude, having the strength in faith to continue on, having the strength to do what needs to be done. We ask this morning that we look at our lives. Are we where we should be? And we need to check and be honest with ourselves. The best way to check is by way of Scripture, looking at it. You cannot obey Christ if you don't know what His words happen to be. You can't. You can't have faith in someone you know nothing about. You can't. Being a follower of Christ is not a matter of, it's not something that's done accidentally or haphazardly or even by guesswork. It's done by knowing the will of Christ and what He has called us to do. There's a life to live in His service. You're created for that purpose and well suited for that purpose. We're not suited for sin. We're not created for that. We're created to serve Him. And that's where our soul needs Him to fill a very large gap that can only be filled by God. And having a full knowledge of Him, we can follow Him completely. This morning, we ask that if you need to respond to the invitation, if we can help you in any way, and we are here to help, we ask that you come as we stand and sing.